All right, so we got George Csahiouni here with another new episode of Pitch to Profit. And today we have two guest founders and leaders of Flying V Group, a marketing company located out of Southern California. Really, really excited to have these fellows on. As I've personally have worked with them with one of our organizations for approximately about 5 years now. And you know what I really love about the founders, Robb Fahrion and Brennan Smith, is that they really kind of are taking a modern approach to marketing and public relations and kind of that advertising space. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to Robb Fahrion, one of the co-founders of Flying V Group. Robb, how you doing today?
Good. George, thanks so much for having me on. And Brennan, yeah, we're really happy to be here. And yeah, echo the sentiments. Working with you too. It's been a great run so far, and looking forward to the future. I think we're just getting started.
Cool, cool. Brennan, how you doing today?
Doing well. Kind of piggybacking off Rob. Yeah, looking forward to getting into it today.
Awesome, awesome. So tell me, you guys have a very interesting story, I think, which is, a fun story, in my opinion, when you're talking about founders creating an organization. And I know just a little bit about it, but, Rob or Brennan, if you guys want to one of you guys wants to jump in, tell me a little bit about how Flying V Group came to be, and a little bit about how that founder story happened.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think I can take that and then let
Yeah.
Brennan fill in the gaps. So honestly, was nothing that was master planned in any way. No business plan. It was kind of a light bulb type moment. I was actually working in a financial consulting role at the time, so something completely outside of marketing. And had a good mentor friend of mine. He's a lawyer, and he came to me just in an absolute panic. Right, his website got hacked, his emails were blacklisted. He literally kind of was dead in the water in terms of operating his business, and he didn't know what to do. Right. And so he called me because I was a bit younger, and he's like, "Yeah, you're the guy I thought of, right? Because you're younger and know your stuff, I think, right?" And I said, "Yeah, let me take a look." Took a look underneath the hood, and yeah, he got malware. He's blacklisted everywhere, the whole nine yards. So we went and we completely rebuilt his website for him, got his emails back up and running, the whole nine yards there to get him operational again. And so when kind of it got to the end, he's like, "Hey, send me an invoice," right? And I'm thinking, "Oh, I don't I don't know what to charge him." Sent him over. I think it was $3,000-$4,000 invoice, right? Nothing crazy.
Sure.
And boom, it was paid in an hour, right? And I'm thinking to myself, how many his name's Mark. Mark's a very successful entrepreneur, lawyer, business owner. I go, how many other guys like him though are out there that don't have that digital support, especially from a marketing standpoint, that's necessary.
Sure.
And so still to this day, you fast forward, we call it kind of that professional services space, your lawyers, finance, accounting, real estate's another one that falls under that umbrella. These guys need a ton of support. So Brennan and we were kind of had some side gigs at the time. Brennan was working social media marketing. I was doing like the website stuff with what I helped with Mark, and kind of went to Brennan and said, "Hey, I think there's something here. I think we can kind of attack this market at least right out of the gate. Have conversations with those organizations that just don't have the support, don't have the bandwidth, don't have the team, or a lot of times they just put it on someone's plate that doesn't have the experience." And so, yeah, we kind of joined forces, 5,000 bucks each, threw it in the pot, threw up a logo, a bad website at the time that's since been redone a few times. And yeah, that was in 2015, right around 2016 when we really kind of got running. And yeah, we're about 350 plus clients served to this point. So it's been a fun journey. And Brendan, I don't know if there's anything that you might want to add to close some gaps.
Yeah, I think it was a coming together of creating a holistic digital marketing company, right? You had Rob and Tyler, one of our other partners, that had the web side of things, the PPC side of things, and a little bit of the SEO at the time. And I was running more of the social ads and the social organic. And at the time, you kind of had marketing directors of companies almost being babysitters for outsourced companies, right? They had a social company they had to deal with. They had a web designer over here. and they kind of spent all their time rather than marketing their company is making sure all the different people they're outsourcing to are all in line. So we figured let's bring that all into one spot, and make it a one-stop shop. Right? There's one person of contact that can handle everything for you, so that whether you're an auto mechanic or you're a lawyer, you can go focus on being the best auto mechanic or the best lawyer and not have to worry about marketing. So yeah, it's just a kind of a come to Jesus moment where we kind of figured, hey, let's alleviate people's pain, and we get to focus on what we love doing best, which is marketing and growing businesses, and let them focus on what they do best. So yeah.
100%. It's fun. I'm glad you guys brought that up. That's a awesome launch story, and it's always fun to look backwards if you're a founder, right? And then to share that with maybe other folks that are kind of going through that process right now. So that's how it starts, right? It starts small, and then you just build it piece by piece. But one of the things that both Rob and Brennan, you both just brought up that I found challenging in the market, as a business owner and leader, at that time, Brennan specifically kind of mentioned early on, maybe 2014, 15, 16, in that time period, when we used to go and try to hire or, partner with a vendor that was for marketing purposes, what I came across personally is a lot of them, and I think maybe other business owners feel the same, from my perspective, is a lot of those marketing companies at that time were, like SEO driven or, here's the data, right? Like look at our click to conversion, progress and result. But, we always found it challenging to actually get a result when we outsourced that type of marketing. We also found it to be, from my personal perspective, found it to be where we constantly had to use multiple partners, as you mentioned, because it wasn't all under one umbrella or under one roof. So is that something that you guys also experienced with how, and how does Flying V kind of operate, if you kind of want to tail into that? What makes Flying V unique, and what's the kind of model that's different for your group?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. So, early on you start the business, and this is Brendan and I's first business. We've run legitimate business, we'll call it, right? We've always had some side projects, different things we've worked on together and whatnot. But out of the gate, people tell you, hey, you gotta find a niche or like do one thing really, really well, right? And so the argument to one-stop shop is okay, jack of all trades, masters of none, right?
Sure.
But what we've seen is that in this digital space, we're masters of lead revenue generation. And in order to generate revenue and in order to generate leads or product sales, whatever it may be, you have to work cross channel nowadays. And
Yeah.
so, what we continued to see, to Brennan's point, was you had these siloed teams. You had the SEO team working here, you had the paid media team working here. And maybe that was even bifurcated between a Facebook ad agency or Meta ad agency and a Google ad agency. But what we saw that was missing was really that cross collaboration, right? And then not only that, but the complementary, supplementary support that these channels have with one another, right? To
Sure.
where, okay, we're driving traffic through organic search. Well, what are we doing in terms of a paid media strategy to support those visitors that are coming to the website? So further we got along, and as we started to learn too, right, like, hey, what is
Yeah.
working in this market? You really need to have that multi-offering marketing strategy and process and operations to be successful in this day and age, because they are so complementary, right? One channel
Yeah.
supports the other, one fills this gap while another fills this gap. It might be where you're intersecting that individual in terms of where they're at in the funnel. So that was a big decision from our end in terms of, okay, we really needed to, one, provide better results and performance, because that's at the end of the day how we're going to be judged. And then two, yeah, we wanted to reduce the burden and the headache on the actual customer in terms of, okay, trying to manage a million different pieces, making sure that they're all rowing in the same direction, which we found was always a constant challenge versus, all right, now they have one point of contact, communicate with Brennan and I, let us go disseminate that information and adjust the strategy as necessary across these different channels.
I gotcha. I gotcha. So there's a lot packed into what you just said that I kind of want to break down. So one thing that that is very important from my perspective, and I think for business owners of all sizes, is that you said that master of lead revenue generation, right? Like, and that's key. Because at the end of the day, marketing means nothing unless you can turn it into dollars, right? Like, and that and one of the things that I find special from my perspective about your group is that you guys do seem to have that's true from my perspective, just from the relationship that we've built, is that you guys, while you track the key performance indicators and you track the KPIs, your end focus really is dollars in the bank, right? Conversion of dollars and results, which I think is, number one, it's refreshing. And number two, it is really what, a group, that would hire a company like Flying V Group is really looking for. Because at the end of the day, all the clicks, all the emails, all the, web hits, whatever the case may be, none of that really means anything if it's not turning into profit, right? That being said, Brennan, maybe you can touch on some of this too. So, Robb was talking a little bit about, cross-selling in different channels. Like, what are some of the, key channels today that maybe Flying V Group focuses on that, that creates that 360 degrees kind of all encompassing, marketing effort that, and I think that's key, that, and it's also very specific, is that, you're not just doing one channel or one or two channels. You guys, if I'm not mistaken, really believe that it is, about a compilation or accumulation of different channels yields that lead revenue generation result. So, Brennan, maybe can you
Yeah.
on that, or what's that?
Yeah, and to touch on a quick point before we dive in there, I think it's a cheesy saying that Rob and I use a lot, but our success or your success is our success, right? As long as you are successful and we're able to grow your business, the more we're going to be working with you, and the more services we're going to be expanding. So we're not the largest agency in the world, but we are more of a white glove approach where we don't have 500 clients and a drop off rate of 20% a month, right? Our goal is to grow every business that we partner with and make sure it's a fit for us as well as we're a fit for them. So that's one of the major things that we like to focus on. In terms of channels, yeah, I would say it's more of an ecosystem approach, right? The more and more we go into this digital age, the less and less attention span the human body has. I think it's nowadays 16 plus or minus touch points until you make a buying decision, just because the attention span, whether it's phones, TVs, computer screens, our minds are moving so fast in this world right now that we need to be touching potential customers or consumers, whether it's through Google search, whether it's through paid advertisements on Meta or even TikTok, Twitter, Pinterest, through paid advertisements, display retargeting. There's so many different digital marketing tools that we can use to follow that user experience. Yes, do we want them to convert immediately from ad to form submission, phone call? Is that going to be the case? 80% of the time, probably not. But the fact that they took that click to go to our website or our landing page shows their interest there, so that we want to be in front of them constantly when they are ready to make that buying decision, that form submission, that find out. We're not going to know from an advertising standpoint what's going on in their daily lives, right? They could have a funeral that they're going to. They may be sick, but they're interested in X service. We know that from them clicking there. So once they're ready to make that buying decision, we're retargeting them. We're utilizing a lot of different tools throughout the digital marketing platforms. Whereas it's not just a siloed only Facebook approach, right? We're hitting them through PPC, Bing, Google, retargeting, where it kind of encompasses the whole entire digital marketing ecosystem rather than just being siloed. So when we do have clients that maybe have the budget to do that approach, we see it being very successful. But we've also taken clients that maybe have a lower budget and we'll crawl, walk, run with them in terms of let's start here and slowly start to build that encompassing marketing plan.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that a little bit, George, if you don't mind, that's part of our job too, is, we don't believe there's a box solution. There's not a one size fits all. Even if we were working with only one specific niche, right? Like, we have to take into account, where's the business at in its business life cycle? What are the goals of that particular business itself, right? To where, yeah, we're leveraging data and information and experience, but we're really crafting and creating a unique strategy. And then how that strategy gets built out is first and foremost, number one, how do we get revenue in the door, right? As quickly as possible. How do we get into the black, especially if we're only using like single or maybe multi-channel? But when you do get that multi-channel approach, it also starts to give you understanding of what does work better than the other, right? To where, okay, you may have an even bifurcation of your spend across 4 channels. Well, 6 months down the road, we'll start to realize, like, hey, what is our return here? Tweak budget, right? From a consolidation standpoint, move budget into more profitable channels. And then, then you start to crank up the dial, and those other channels start to become more support or complementary to really the main and primary. Because at the end of the day, there's no getting around it. There's a lot of testing, right? A lot of what we do, we go in, with a very educated hypothesis, with a very educated strategy. But we're working in dynamic markets. We have to be ready to adjust. And I think that goes back to, your kind of point. We're data driven 100%, but we're not data driven by the vanity metrics, right? Like we
Sure.
know, okay, yeah, there's correlation between website traffic and leads, but if the website traffic is poor or we don't have the proper customer persona that we're targeting, we may be generating leads, but our clients coming back to us and saying, hey, you're actually becoming an administrative burden on me because these leads are poor
Sure.
quality, right? So
Sure.
yeah, we're always focused on the high quality. We want to shorten sales cycles where possible. That's where that multi-touch point familiarity, building up that brand awareness comes into play.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we want to, if we can be more efficient, higher quality, right? That's where you really start to see those multiples on marketing spend.
Yeah, that's incredible information. It's got my mind and gears turning. So just kind of looking at this and shifting gears just a little bit since you brought up market and a little bit about industry type. So I think that gives everyone kind of a high level focus of kind of, how Flying V Group kind of works and also what works well in the market as far as just overall strategy, right? 360 kind of marketing strategy, multi-channel cross-selling or cross-marketing. A couple of things, though, just to take a step back and look at it from a business owner or a merchant point of view. What markets? And there's a couple of questions here, but what markets, do you feel um, marketing works best for? Is there certain industry types? Like, if there's owners listening to this podcast now or in the future, for companies that are like Flying V Group or Flying V Group itself, like what are you seeing where, what is it, small business? Is it medium-sized business? Is it retail brick and mortar? Is it industry? What products, market well, what products don't? If you guys can maybe just share a little bit of kind of what that high level that looks like. So then listeners might be able to say, oh, okay, maybe it rings a bell. And they're like, marketing really works well for my industry, or, there's certain challenges in certain industries. So if you guys could speak on that a little bit, maybe, ideal client profiles in that market, what that looks like.
Sure. Without sounding too salesy, I mean, I think marketing should be a crucial component of every business, right? I think that's where who you partner with is important in making sure that they understand how to craft that strategy for that specific clientele,
Sure.
right? So for example, like let's take, restaurants, right? We do a lot of work in the restaurant nightclub space, and getting in touch with consumers that are coming, scheduling for private parties, whatever it may be. So, like that approach there, like your local SEO is key, right? Driving action through Google My Business and whatnot. If you talk about e-commerce, it's really like what product. That's where Brennan talked about, them being a fit for, you need a solid product, you need a solid offering. But then from there, it's what's our message, and then how do we get that message in front of our potential customers, and where are they, right? And so the other day we had a call with merchant processing that's focusing on dry cleaners, right? And okay, that approach becomes a little bit different in that we would go validate, like, are there these individuals and owners on a LinkedIn platform, right? If they're not, okay, we know that they're probably on an Instagram, Facebook Meta platform. The problem there is it's hard to actually find them. So that's where we actually validate and qualify the individual with the content itself, right? Because we can take either email lists that are existing, we try and scrape email lists where we can, plug that back up into the system, but then basically validate our audience based on if they're clicking the ad. So my point being is, hey, are you a dry cleaner interested in reducing your credit card processing fees with X, Y, and Z? If people
So,
click that ad, there's a good correlation that they probably are that individual. And so
right.
that's when we start to move them down into a more qualified location. So,
So,
but yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing, still definitely, obviously, restaurant space, small, medium sized businesses, right? I mean, they're always looking at ways to have a competitive advantage, whether it's us from a marketing perspective or, hey, they're saving money on processing, right? So, I think again, it's just giving that information to a team that understands what to do with it. And then from there, our job is saying, okay, we're going to attack like this because of X, Y, and Z. And there has to be that thought process. There has to be that strategy in place to where, we always say like 50% of what we do is the actual output of the services. The other 50% is really us consulting, right? And saying, okay, we want to be here for this reason, and we're going to back it up with this for this reason to get
sure.
to X end result.
Cool. Cool. Brennan, do you have any thoughts on that as well? Or
Yeah, I think just in terms of the other side of the question, which was like, what are the current markets that you could see utilizing marketing if it were a company like Find V Group listening? I would say the companies, and it's kind of a vague answer, but where they typically all their clients or 80% of their clients are word of mouth referrals, friends, family. You see a lot of that in RAAs, family lawyers. To what Rob was saying, smaller businesses, and whether you like it or not, the COVID pandemic brought a lot of the older generation to the digital world, to where you have 65 plus year olds doing Zoom calls like we are today.
sure.
Brick and mortar isn't there. The getting lunch with your financial advisor isn't happening as much now. So we see a lot of those industries transferring, and being more open to that influx of business from the digital perspective. Because Rob's point, we come at it with our best hypothesis, right? But it's all based on data. So whether you're a windshield repair guy wanting more people who own cars, we can cross channel look and see where are those people, probably meta based on the demographics. But to Rob's point, more the business to business focus, being LinkedIn, more of a vetted platform, knowing that if someone's a business owner, it's or some level within the company, there's a vetting process there. We can then drive that customer to a potential client. So yeah, a lot of those industries that are somewhat outdated are now slowly coming into the front fold of the digital marketing world. So it's exciting to see. And when we do have people within those certain industries take that first step, they are kind of the leaders within the industry, and it's hard for the competition, whether it's from an SEO perspective or a lead generation, to catch up once they start that ball rolling down the hill from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that would be the question. Like, if you're a business owner, right? Regard whether you're a merchant processor, small business, it's kind of like, okay, how do I generate my business? Am I using any sort of digital strategy? A lot of times they're not, or maybe they're just the tip of the iceberg. And then if you look around and realize that all of your competitors do things the exact same way you're doing, you have a first mover, huge competitive advantage moving forward
Yep.
in that digital space. So that's a lot of times the hump we have to get over, right? Is you're presenting something that's completely brand new, but it's supplementary in terms of a revenue stream, and it's much more scalable as well.
yeah,
Not that we're ever going to replace referral word of mouth. We're not advocating for that at all. Like I said, we're supplementing it, and then I think you're actually accentuating it too, to where, okay, you're having a lot of conversations that are word of mouth and referral. They're coming to your website. Maybe they didn't reach out, right? Maybe
right.
like Brennan's, maybe they got a phone call in the middle of when they were going to. Well, what are you doing after the fact of that, right? How are you staying top of mind? How are you reminding them that you can do X, Y, and Z, outside of just doing that manually, which, as we all know, as business owner, time is money and time is
Right.
finite, which is our issue that we run into. So that's
Yeah.
where a lot of these automation, marketing, following, retargeting, et cetera, become very effective.
Well, here, and there, you guys are bringing up some excellent points for business owners. A couple quick questions. Getting into one, and you guys have already kind of touched on a little bit, but is it easier? So, referral based businesses, oftentimes, like a financial planner or the windshield repair, car repair person, right? Or whatever the case may be. But those are all service based, right? So like a lot of that is referral or appointment kind of structured type of business, right? So like anything that's service based, whether it's janitorial, whether it is financial, whether it is, delivery, right? Or mobile businesses, that type of stuff, right? So anything that's service based, would you say that the marketing is easier or harder versus like a retail business, right? So I know you mentioned a little bit, Rob, you touched on like ecom has to have a good product, right? Because it's, from my own experience, I think a lot of business owners may or may not be aware of this because sometimes they have a product that does work well, word of mouth, and they're like, hey, I want to go online, but it might be service orientated, right? Versus like, or it might be and not retail. So can you speak on that a little bit? Like, what are some of the most effective ways, or what do you find effective just on just the highest level, service versus retail?
Yeah, I'd say retail's a lot easier just due to tracking, right? Because like it's really a black or white transaction. Like okay, we can go online, we can put an ad in front of somebody, they can click that ad, they go to the website and they buy a product, right? Obviously, if you're talking about going into brick and mortar, that tracking gets a little bit more difficult, right? But we are getting more tools underneath our belt. Like for example, programmatic ads that we run nowadays, we can run an ad to an individual on their device. If they take that device, which let's face it, we're all tied to our devices that saw that ad into that retail location, we're able to count that as a geo conversion, right? So like we have a client that's a car wash to where we can run the most perfect ad in the world on Meta, and they see that ad, they jump in their car, they drive down to the wash and get a wash. Hard to track sometimes, right? But there are
Sure.
tools that are helping us. And again, that's that kind of black and white transaction to where, okay, we run the ad, we see the spend. What did that correlate in terms of overall numbers at the end of the year, at the end of the month at the register, right?
Sure.
Service is where you got to have that end to end process. And so we've seen ourselves even creep more and more into kind of that like sales enablement to
Yeah.
where, okay, we can be the best marketers again, we can get somebody to the door, but what do you do when they're at the door is kind of the analogy we use, right? When they knock, do you answer it immediately? Do you answer it immediately and hand them a cocktail, right? Does it take you 5 minutes to answer the door and they're standing out there? And so that's where we've really on the service side, it's a lot longer process, it's harder to track. You're obviously the lead generation is just one piece, but the close transaction doesn't happen until quite a bit after. That's where though we are helping at least from the data standpoint to say, hey, you gotta get organized, right? Like you need a CRM nowadays, you need automated reminders, you need automated emails going out to remind that individual that they even reached out to you, right? Because
Okay.
we all know how it is. Someone's like, "Oh, I need this immediately," and then you pick up the phone, try and call them, and you can't even get a hold of them, right? Well, does that just go by the wayside? So I know
So
Brennan's probably got a
probably
lot to add to that too, but yeah, that's the biggest difference. But I like the e-commerce just because, like I said, that black and white transaction's very
Yeah, so
nice.
e-commerce, basically what you're saying is it's very transactional, right? Retail, with a like tangible product is also very transactional, right? And then, I don't know if Rob or Brendan, you want to speak on this just a little bit, but it sounds like then, anything that's service orientated, that's kind of where you guys are stepping in and doing a little bit more consulting, probably, right? Because you're having to educate the clients, I would imagine. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe it's both hands. I'm sure there's a little bit on both sides, but I imagine there's probably more consulting and coaching on like how to get this to a close on the service side. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, and I think it's one part when we break down, okay, who's someone's audience? How do we get them in front of them? But then it's also, okay, can you handle this influx of leads, right? We know you're running your business right well, the way it is right now, and you have maybe for the last 5, 10 years. But now we're bringing a whole different avenue of leads and all of that from a sales perspective. We come in from Rob's point. The other 50% is that consultative side, right? Where do you guys take these leads? Who on your team is facilitating them? You know, one of the most important things is getting in front of these leads right when they come to your front door. To what Rob said, putting a cocktail in front of their hand, calling them back, answering the phone, replying in an email, because that that is a warm lead. They're actively coming to your site, giving up their valuable information to find out more about your business. Who's to say in 5 minutes they're not doing that on someone else's website, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of the times it's a push and pull with clients in terms of, okay, let us bring all these leads to you, and now give us some feedback. How were the leads? Write some notes up, quantifying 1 to 10. That allows us to then take that data, go back to our teams, and say, hey guys, these were good, these were bad. Let's get more of these. So that at the end of the day, we're giving them quality leads and making sure we're not just wasting their time from a follow up standpoint.
And that's where too, like the transactional side, there is a transactional side to the services as well, in that, like, okay, if we have good tracking and transparency from the clients and can see, okay, we'll be able to see, right, like this lead was generated through this channel. And then again, that's where it's like, okay, certain channels are going to generate lower quality, right, certain higher, and then that's where we start to score that out. But Brennan, I want to tell the secret shopper campaign. So like early days,
I
we were running SEO, paid media through Google, and we're getting data, right? We're seeing, okay, conversion numbers coming in, and we got he's a great guy, love the guy to death, right? We still work with him to this day. We talked about windshield repair, and older gentleman, been running the business probably forever, but didn't know a lick about digital marketing. He's going, we're not getting these leads, like whatever you're telling me. And so I said, Michael, we are getting these leads. I said, because we can see them. I said, how are you processing them on your side? So I went and did a little secret shopper campaign on him, right? And submitted
Sure.
like 3 or 4 of my own. And sure enough, one of them, yeah, they got back to us. It was 4 hours later. Another one was the next day. One of them
Sure.
never got back to us, right? And I told him, I said, based on the industry you're in, people are trying to get that fixed immediately if they're online, right? So at
Yeah.
that point, they're gone. They're already starting working with somebody else. They've already, if it's service based, building a relationship with somebody else at that point. Because yeah, that's what business is, right? The more rapport you can have somebody, people doing business with people, that's really a big piece of the buying decision at the end of the day, assuming all the other
Yeah.
boxes are checked.
I think, so that really leads into, like, everybody wants to grow, right? But are you prepared to grow, right? Like, are you ready to take on
Yep.
the action? Because you're definitely
Yep.
gonna have to, when the action comes, it's easy to blame the marketing company, or it's easy to blame the lead, right? That's a common area of opportunity. But when the lead comes in, like, what are you doing with it? Like, are you taking that appropriate action? Have you trained your team? Have you had the meetings to lay out process and specifics? Like, what's the plan? Right. So yeah, that is definitely something we've experienced personally in our own business as well. And that's definitely something that needs to be defined. That being said, let's segue real quick, for the sake of time. I want to talk a little bit about, like, budget. What's a good budget for a business owner? And let's just kind of put it in like a couple of buckets, if you don't mind, right? Like, whether it's a retail brick and mortar, maybe restaurant, retail boutique, what's a budget look like for a small to medium sized business in that sector? And then maybe, what you think is appropriate, maybe e-commerce or even like corporate level. Like, I'm sure it varies greatly. But I think and really for the small to medium sized business owner, because we work in that space as well with our groups and our organizations, and with a lot of the other guests that we have on, they're in that SMB, retail brick and mortar space, selling business to business. I think a common theme there with business owner, and kind of put a label on it, we're talking about John at John's Pizza, right? Susie at Susie's Nail Salon, Bob at Bob's Automotive Shop. Those are very common SMB businesses. A lot of times, and I'm sure you get this all the time, but they don't have the money to afford the marketing. But if you don't have the marketing, you're not building your business, you're actually shrinking your business, especially with the rising cost of inflation and things of that nature, right? So you got to keep driving new traffic. The most valuable customer is the new customer, right? So then you can retain them and then keep them going. So, I mean, you talk a little bit about budgets and maybe how you overcome some of that hurdle, or any piece of advice that you might give to a small business owner with regards to budgets and, just kind of anything that you hear in the marketplace.
Brennan, you want to take that?
Yeah, I would say obviously it's tough to give the exact number here, right? But it does vary based on on industry, I would say, and clientele. If you're talking more about that SMB market, what we see, especially with people that maybe haven't allocated any budget to marketing, is that kind of crawl, walk, run approach that we've talked about. Foot in the door, whether it's starting out with local SEO. I think with talking about, Susie's Nail Salon and Bob's Pizzeria and stuff like that, where it isn't very much so someone's going to my website and then placing an order, right? It's more of they're looking up best pizza near me, right? And we want to populate their Google My Business profile, which kind of acts nowadays as a miniature website of a business, where someone will go from best pizza near me, Bob's Pizzeria is the first, maybe top three. They click there, boom, they're calling, right? There's not a lot of, from at least the restaurant industry or a lot of the small businesses, there's not a lot of research that goes into those quick decisions. It's more of a validation based on whether we like it or not. People trust Google more than they trust their best friend, based on, that's the reason why Google has 99% of their business comes from paid advertisements, because people trust it as a search engine to give them the best results. So, we do have various, local SEO packages that start around 1,500 and can work their way up. To Robb's point earlier in the call, we don't have packaged solutions for any industry, right? We base it off of data. So although we may have a local SEO package starting at 1,500, we do have more aggressive packages, and we recommend those based on our audits that we run. So we'll run a whole SEO audit on a business, say Bob's Pizzeria, and take the other three main competitors that either Bob gives us or that we see from our research and show, hey, either all the pizzerias that you just said are your top three competitors aren't doing anything. We don't need to be as aggressive, but we can definitely start getting a leg up on the competition. Or, hey, they've been doing this for a while. We need to start playing catch up a little more aggressively. So, the small, medium businesses, just, get a foot in the door. I would say that SEO is probably that 1,500. Depending on the industry, you do have larger budgets depending on the products they offer, whether it could be a lawyer could have, obviously a larger marketing budget than someone who's selling $24.99 pizzas, right? So that's where you can add on, supplemental services from paid advertisement and stuff like that.
I think it's the mindset too. So someone asked me, like, who's your favorite client to work with? It's the one that understands that marketing is an investment, not an expense, is my answer to that, right? And so, like, that's where too, from our side, we're looking at, businesses that want to grow, right? Like, you're not marketing should never be, it's never maintenance, right? Like, people talk about SEO like, oh, I do it for 3 months and then I don't have to do it anymore. It's like, no, you actually need to get more aggressive as you continuously move forward. So I think as a business owner, you have to understand what you're getting into first and foremost. And so that's where, like, the research, the education is key. And we try and educate as well as part of just our discovery process, our proposal process, etc. And then what are the variables? Are you trying to generate business tomorrow? Well, if that's the case, we can generate business tomorrow, but guess what? It's probably going to be more expensive because you're probably going to be using a strategy like paid advertising. And in that particular case, we have to pay Google to run the ads. You obviously are paying us to manage, set up, improve performance, right? Sure. Or, do you understand that, hey, this is an investment, right? I'm not going to see immediate. We want to drive returns immediately, obviously, right? But you talk about like an SEO work. SEO is compounding, where, okay, if I'm putting $500 in a bank account, well, in year one, that's not when I'm making a lot of money on interest. I'm probably never making a lot of money on a bank account, right? But the point being, 30 years from then, right, is where you're really going to start to see interest returns, right? And so same thing here. It's that compounding effect. Again, depending on the strategy, depending on the budget, right, and how quickly you want to ramp.
Yeah, I think what's great about you folks and what I've learned from my own experience, you're really invested in the fundamental and foundational building like the house with a good foundation so it doesn't topple over. I think you guys, it sounds like, that you're taking a look, as you mentioned, life cycle of the business type, the budget, and, and Brennan has said, and you both have said a few times already, crawl, walk, run. I think that probably goes both ways. I don't think a lot of business owners understand that. Like as we kind of already kind of discussed, but just to hone that in a little bit, you're learning that business as much as that business owner is learning how effective the marketing is going to be and what strategy is going to work. And, I think you guys being in the business are also, whether the business owner knows it or not, sometimes you slow them down too, just to make sure, are they prepared? Do they have the action plan? And also you want to look and test the data. So I think, we could talk about this for hours, but I think that's a ton of great insight. And I think our audience is going to get a lot out of that. Real quick, before we tell people how to get a hold of Flying V Group, I had an interesting, I always thought the name, just one last tidbit, I always thought the name Flying V Group was interesting. I didn't know if you guys were like just a huge Mighty Ducks fan from back in the day. I didn't totally understand. But, if you guys want to maybe just share, how did you guys come up with your name?
Yeah, Brennan, I think, is an adopted fan now. So yeah, my brother and I, yeah, we are big hockey fans, and then Anaheim
Oh, okay.
Ducks being here in Southern California.
I got
Obviously,
you.
you go back to the Mighty Duck movies,
Sure.
D3, Flying V, right? So we've spun it though on our website. We talk about it's actually pretty cool. I know more about bird migration patterns than I thought I ever would, but
Oh, okay.
but
There
they
you go.
fly
I guess
they
that's the
fly
other.
that yeah, they fly that way for a specific reason. Like they can fly further as a team. They trade off who the leader is in the front. So we always tell people, hey, we'll help you on
Yeah.
your marketing migration journey, become more efficient, more effective,
Gotcha.
go further.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the front bird alleviates all the pain for the rest of the birds, right? So that they can
Sure.
coast. So kind of to my earlier point in the call, um, we try to alleviate the marketing pains of other businesses. So Rob and them have gone the hockey route, and I've tried to spin it into we're coming in, alleviating that marketing pain, and letting you coast and do what you do best. So that's the
Well,
business spin that we have on it too. So
I think both are fantastic, and it's definitely unique, and it's definitely very brandable, as you guys would know. That being said, I really appreciate your time. Real quick, if our audience wants to reach out to Flying V Group, Rob or Brennan, how do they contact you? What's the best way to reach out?
yeah, website's great, flyingvgroup.com. We're very active on all social media channels too. So LinkedIn heavily, X, both Brennan and I too. Please, by all means, send a personal connection. We love connecting with people there. We're both on X and LinkedIn as well, just by searching our names. Yeah, we're readily available as a marketing agency should be. And yeah, we love connecting. I think that's the key. Actually, I read a cool quote the other day is that competitors are working at the bottom of the table and the people at the top of the table are collaborating, right? So I think like that's where we see ourselves as wanting to be collaborative, helping and supporting and really bringing in, more team, more network, right? Cross channel to from our client, doing business for our clients or bringing referrals to our clients too, right? We're really just trying to create, a strong network that can leverage expertise, resources, referrals, network in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think you said it, man. It's better to collaborate. I definitely think that's what you guys are all about. That's been my personal experience as well. Hey, just want to say, really appreciate your time. I think you guys are doing something special for the marketing space, but also for the many businesses that you guys are working with. Hey, so thanks a lot, and thanks for having and joining us today.
Thanks so much, George.
thanks, George.